Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Brian from Apex Detail. Today, we are working on a 1963 Saab 96. And this Saab 96, later in the year, had the Ford Toughness V4 engine. This was a four-piston engine with one balance shaft that was introduced by the Ford Motor Company in '62, and the Germans built it and used it in their Colognes, Consuls, Capris, and Transits. The Saab 96 is a two-door, four-seater that was manufactured and marketed from Saab from 1960 to 1980. It started out being a two-stroke, three-cylinder, and later ended up being a four-stroke V4. This Saab 96 has a single-stage gray paint job. It was redone in the late 80s or early 90s. Not exactly sure or who did it. However, there are dust nibs to remove. There's a lot of oxidation. There's some scratches, some love marks. Really dull, and we're going to bring it back to life. We're going to make quite a turnaround here, and we're going to start off with a rinseless wash. Anything that's classic, antique, and you're not sure about the seals and the rubber grommets, you want to do a rinseless wash. Unless it's been totally restored from the frame up and you know those seals will hold, then you could do a contact wash with a bucket. I do things slightly different from other detailers out there. I know what goes on the surface of the car microscopically, so I like to do a little bit of claying only when needed and where needed before the decontamination or the ferrous metal remover. So that makes sure the ferrous metal can reach and break down the ferrous metals and let that exothermal reaction take place. So again, I just feel, and where needed and when needed, I'll do claying. And after the ferrous metal remover, I'll do a little bit of claying again if I see that the ferrous metal remover is breaking down a ton of embedded contaminants and really turning the car purple. If it's very light or none at all, some of the cars that come in are trailered and they're not driven very much, don't have a lot of ferrous metals to remove, so I won't clay afterwards. I chose SB3 Decon for the decontamination here. Has a pleasant smell, doesn't really smell like rotten eggs like some of the other ones. And after it's broken down the ferrous metals, I'll use a rinseless wash to help thin it out a bit so I can remove it easily. A little hard to see on the paint itself, but you could see the purple color that dripped down off of the car, really pointing towards some ferrous metals being on the surface a little bit more than I expected. All right, so after that, the next step will be Jade A62. This is just a panel prep, and this is to remove any wax or sealant that the previous owner may have put on the car. We need to remove that. I don't want to get it stuck up into the pads, and that also would slow the correction down. Next, time to protect trim or rubber or any type of emblem or sticker or decal or even pinstriping that's on the vehicle before we start to correct. This serves a few purposes, not letting some of the polishes or compound debris or residue to touch the plastic or rubber and soak in and stain it, but also protects it from the pad bumping up against it and permanently damaging the texture. I prefer the 3M Precision masking tape for this purpose. It is a very low profile, thin masking tape that the pad will easily slide over during correction, that will not lift the edges and get adhesive on your pad. Can't forget the pinstriping. The pinstriping was hand painted, wearing thin to begin with, so we don't want to damage it with an aggressive pad or an aggressive polisher compound. That will do it. Everything is protected that needs to be. I even have the tire covers over the wheels. The wheels and tires are clean. No need to get any splatter from the compounds or polishes. This step is overlooked by many, but very important and will save your backside. Any emblems that can be removed will be, and those that can't will be taped off. First things first, there's probably 1,000 dust nibs to get rid of, and one way I do it, which if you don't have common sense, stay away from the tool, but I'll grab a razor blade and I'm going to put masking tape on the ends, on the corners. That keeps the corners from being aggressive, but also lifts the blade up a little bit, so when I scrape across, just like this, it takes off the nib, the dust nib, or the high point, and then leaves everything level. It's a great tool, but again, if you can't use it with common sense, leave it be. After a couple strokes across the nib, I'll check my work, and this is closer. Only one little tiny high spot I see, so I'm going to go over it one more time in a different direction, and then the rest will be perfected by wet sanding, and we'll get into that later. All right, so after I've taken what seemed like forever to go around to take care of those, it's time to do some wet sanding. I have two blocks, my little 1-inch block and my 3-inch block. The little 1-inch block has 1500 grit. I can also use 2000 grit, depending on the single stage. This single stage is older and it's a little bit stubborn, so it's going to take some aggression to get it filed down a little bit. This has plenty of single stage on it, about 13 mils, so we have plenty to work with. We have nothing to worry about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spot correct everything, all of the nibs that I removed with the 1500 grit, and then we'll jump up to the 3000 grit right next to me there to go over the rest of the panel, exfoliate it from the dead paint molecules and the oxidation, the heavy oxidation that it has. Wet sanding is probably my favorite and quickest way to correct. It's easier on the clear, keeps the temperature down, doesn't move a whole lot if you picked the correct sandpaper or Trizact disc, and I'll show you exactly how much it removes with a paint depth gauge in future videos in this series, but when you get it right and you finish it down with 3000 or 4000 grit, you can completely finish it with just a very fine polish. You don't have to spend the whole day on a dual action polisher or a rotary. Okay, that's as far as we need to go when it comes to the wet sanding, and that's exactly what it looks like. Just like there are various types of clear coats when it comes to hardness, same goes with single stage. But we're always going to try and start with the least aggressive method. So I have the 50/50 pad here, and we're just going to use 3D1. If I have to jump up with aggression, I have plenty of room to go because I can go with a more aggressive compound, and then I can really jump up with a more aggressive pad as well. And I even have a third option. I'm using the Max Shine M8S, not a very aggressive polisher, just an 8mm throw. I just did a review on it, so I thought I would drag it out one more time and let you guys hear it, see it in action, and show you what work it can do on this car here. But I could jump up with something that has a 15mm throw, something that has 21mm throw. I could also use the rotary. So this first combination with the Eurofiber 50/50 pad and just the 3D1 did the job. It took a heck of a lot longer than it should have. So we're going to experiment with a lot more combinations when we come into the next few videos of the series here. But as you can see, huge turnaround. This thing is going to look absolutely fantastic when we're done with it. So this will do it for the first video here, and we'll come back and start to correct some of these other panels with different combinations and get some nice turnaround. As usual, I appreciate you all stopping by and spending some time with me as we correct this Saab 96. If you like the content, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. That will let you know when we have new content available.